baseball nuts, and a big warm welcome to the 2023 MLB season review and playoff preview special. Two for the price of one. Although when it comes to Channel 5 former presenters, we've got three for the price of four. No Big Dave, sadly, but we have got JC in the hot seat. And most important of all, of course, we've got Erik, the producer. And I say most important of all because it's been so long since we had our last podcast that Erik went rogue, everybody. I don't know if you're even aware of this. Erik and Dave, you went rogue, buddy, and produced a Jonny and Josh podcast, which we didn't even know about.
There's a one-off spin-off, and somebody had to entertain the masses.
You know? I mean, it was the best episode we've had in 3 seasons, so, you know.
I hate to agree, Josie. I genuinely, I watched the first 6 minutes and I was crying. I was laughing so much. And do you know, it took you 6 minutes, Erik, before you actually started talking baseball. 6 minutes of utter nonsense, but wonderful nonsense.
Gee, I wonder who else does that. Wow. Jeez.
Excuse me, I've already said hello to the fellow baseball nuts, so there's been a baseball reference. The two of you, what was that? I mean, 6 minutes. It was high comedy.
Erik's all about being deconstructed. It's like, you know, we're not going to follow the rules. I'm just going to kind of free flow. He's like jazz.
It was unscripted, unfiltered. It was uncensored. It wasn't a family show, that's for sure. So,
hey, buddy, well, it was clearly past the watershed. And I'll tell you this, you're both naturals. I mean, you're natural comedians. It was like watching a modern-day Laurel and Hardy. I mean, it was genuinely hilarious. Well, so anybody that hasn't seen it, do check us out. Check out David and Erik's recent Rogue show. It could only be seen on YouTube because you've got to see it in all its technicolor glory.
Yes, you do.
Well, boys, timing's everything, Goldie. Timing's everything.
Well, guys, that's you know, let's be up front with our listeners. That's the reason why we're struggling to get all four of us together. I mean, even getting all three of us. I mean, JC, you've been unbelievably busy. How did the curling go, big guy?
Well, I played in back-to-back tournaments. The first one we made the finals. We went 6-0 through round robin in the playoffs, and then fell in the finals. And the second one was a tougher week. We went 2-3. So
okay,
not going to be traveling as much. Unfortunately, the season ends for baseball, and I'm doing more curling at home. My daughter, though, is playing on a girls' team this year. So,
and is she good? Has she got a bit of a dad's talent?
She's. You know, the one thing about me in any sport I've ever played is that my form never looks good. People are always mystified that I have any success at any sport I do because it's not, you know, there are people who look really good when they swing a bat. The people look really good when they throw a curler. So I am not that person in any sport. She's got better form than I do as a curler. So I'm excited.
Erik, you've been busy as well. You've been all over the place. Usually
yes.
For MLB. What have you been up to?
Geez, I can't remember where I was last time we had a podcast, but yes, I've been in Lithuania, Bulgaria, Singapore, not for MLB for Singapore, but yes,
Switzerland
for ice hockey.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
So yes, and it's always been, yes, as you said, it's hard to get all of us together and do the podcast because I'm doing baseball, we're all busy doing our own walks of life, and the reason why David can't be here this evening is, ironically, he's at the Mets game right now.
Okay, well, look, I want everybody to check out the YouTube, particularly so that you can see the Rogue episode. It's so worth it. Admittedly, I've only watched the first 10 minutes, but the first 6 minutes was the best thing I've ever seen. It's all obviously in Technicolor, and it's on our very own YouTube channel. And in fact, every episode's there. So if you want to check out that one, you can check out all the rest as well. If you've got nothing better to do with your time. But we also need you to big up our whole social media presence because we clearly don't do enough of it. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. At Jonny and Josh is, of course, the title. We look at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to point. You've got to hit the like button. And it'd be great, you know, if you subscribe as well. That'd be absolutely awesome. Okay, Erik, we need a trivia question.
Yes,
What's
you do.
Our trivia question for the episode?
You know, my penchant for complete games and how the death of the complete game pitcher is now upon us with the new rules and the pitch count and all this. Guess how many complete games there were in the entirety of the 2023 season? Let's take a wild guess. Stab.
Less than 10.
Josh?
25.
35. Josh wins by default. Now, there are only 35 complete.
Is that a trivia question? We just jumped ahead.
We're done. Goodbye, everyone.
There were only 35 complete games. Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ. So yeah, only 35 complete games, the entirety of Major League Baseball this year. Okay. Now, my question to you is, which current active pitcher has the most career complete games in his portfolio. All right, so which pitcher has pitched the most complete games in his career? Active, currently, because it's the last day of the season. These are your choices. Is it A, Justin Verlander? Or is it B, Adam Wainwright? Yes, he's still active as of today. Or is it C, Zach Greinke? Yes, he's still active too as of today. Last day of the regular season. So is it A, Justin Verlander, B, Adam Wainwright, or C, Zach Greinke? Which of these three active pitchers has the most career complete games in a career? Answer later on in the show.
So just to clarify, the most career complete games in a career. Very important that you put the career complete
Twice.
games in a career. You just wanted to make the point twice. Okay.
Yeah.
Just clarify.
Not in the season. Moving on.
Moving on. Hit that bell. Right. Batter number one. I say batter number one. It is, of course, tradition here on this show, the Jonny and Josh podcast. For a moment there, guys, I couldn't remember what we called it. The Jonny and Josh podcast. That's what we're doing. It's been quite traditional. We have like a news roundup. But actually, this show is so much about what's happening in the Major League season. We want to look ahead to the playoffs. We want to see who's in, who's out. So we're going to kick things off, not with a news roundup. We're going to flip it around, and we're going to focus on the main topic, which is the playoffs. So who's in, who's out. And this is a bit of a disappointment for me, guys. I love the whole concept of the last day of the season when there's still games to be played, positions to be won. And the reality is there isn't. We know who the 12 teams are.
Yeah. I mean, I was really, to be honest, rooting for the Cubs right there down the stretch. They faltered so much when they really had a chance to get into the playoffs. It's going to be interesting with them with Cody Bellinger now, probably going back to free agency. But the team that is most exciting to me for this playoff race is Miami, the Miami Marlins. Kim Ng, female general manager. I don't care, male, female, whatever. She is a fantastic aggregator of talent and did so much with that team to be able to get them into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to have a deep run. Real hats off to Kim and really that whole organization.
And I'll be honest with you guys, as an NL East fan, obviously, with Braves not just champions of the division, but the best record in the National League. I'm really glad that one of the Phillies and Marlins is going out before we even get into the playoffs proper, because obviously they're matching up against each other in one of the wildcard matchups. I'm well happy to see one of them go because, you know, we all know what happened with the Phillies and the Braves last season. Phillies got hot, Braves went cold. The nightmare, of course, of clinching a bye. On the one side, you get a rest. But on the other side, you go cold. And we've seen it happen before, JC. Teams go off the board.
You know, the thing with the Braves, I just hope it helps at all in getting their pitching healthy. I mean, I think that's really been a big issue with them. I mean, obviously, you got Strider. He's been amazing. You know, you've got 1-2 there. It's about those other games. If they have a hiccup and they lose one with one of their big aces, are they going to be able to just outslug other teams? And to be honest, the probable answer is yes. I mean, you look at that lineup, it's a murderer's row. I mean, better than really any lineup that we've seen in a long time. Them and the Rangers, to me, I look at those two lineups and think offense, offense, offense. But, you know, playoffs are about pitching. It's one of the oldest cliches in the baseball book. So that'll be my one question.
Dodgers coming in under the radar, Erik. I sort of feel that, you know, and obviously Mr. Todd Lowley is now the owner of my football club as well, and he's done exactly the same there as he did with the Dodgers, threw money at it, became the biggest payers, hasn't worked in the Premier League of football. It sort of, to a degree, has worked. They've won many a division. They've won one World Series of late. They got to another one, which obviously they didn't win. You sort of think this year, instead of being the big dog that everybody's expecting to be successful, that the way the Braves have performed and all the other great stories, they've almost sort of got in under the radar. Nobody's really talking about them in the same way they have done in previous seasons. That could be quite dangerous, couldn't it?
But the Dodgers, I mean, they were, I think, just the apathy kicked in. I think we just assumed that they were going to be favorites again, right? So we just didn't expect them to be still this good again. But the team that I'm sad about that didn't make it on the last penultimate day of the season were the Reds. I was hoping Joey Votto was able to get a World Series ring, and is apparently last season, definitely his last season with the Reds. Whether he goes to another team after this, I doubt it. But I think we've seen the last of Joey Votto, a man of great Canadian stock.
One of the best personalities in baseball right now. You saw him being interviewed right in that last weekend, and I mean, he spoke from the heart about Reds fans. He spoke from the heart about how much this season has meant to him and how hard these guys have worked to try and make those fans happy. It's just going to be a loss of the game when he does retire. Yeah, I know we're going to talk later about whether he has Hall of Fame prospects or not, but in the hall of very interesting and nice guys, he is definitely deserves enshrinement.
I just want to clarify for all our listeners, guys, for those that perhaps haven't had access to the internet, that one, the Braves obviously clinched the NL East, and of course they got the #1 seed in the National League. Dodgers have got the West, Brewers have got the Central, Phillies have clinched the #1 wild card. We're talking National League at the moment, and Marlins and D-backs, because we're recording this just prior to the last game of the regular season Sunday night. They've both got a wild card berth, so that's the National League. So there's not a great deal to get you excited on Sunday night if you're a National League fan, but the AL, whole different story. So the Orioles have clinched the AL East, and they're the #1 seed in the American League. The Twins have clinched Central, and the Rays clinched the #1 AL wildcard and will host a wildcard series against the #5 seeds. We've got Rangers, who have clinched a playoff berth, have had the Blue Jays, have had the Astros. A lot to look forward to, perhaps not quite as exciting as we've been used to in previous seasons.
Goldie, I mean, I look at that American League slate of playoff teams and I think of the Hunger Games. I mean, I feel like every one of those teams could be nasty. I mean, the Blue Jays, they have some depth in pitching. They have a deep offensive lineup. Obviously, the Orioles have been awesome this year with a couple of great pitchers, Bradish, and some good pitching at the top. But everyone, and I already mentioned the Rangers. I mean, every one of those teams, Goldie, it's really going to be just absolutely tooth and nail through the American League. I think the National League, there's some soft spots, but the American League's quite deep.
Now, I mentioned to Erik about the Dodgers coming in under the radar. Do you feel, Erik, you could make the same argument in the American League with the Astros, reigning champions? They're still trying to fight out for the division title. Sort of, nobody's been talking about them being a beast this year. Perhaps they're slipping in under the radar.
100%.
No, I mean, I don't think they were above the radar. They were bleeping every single radar installation in the country.
But the expectations, Erik, had dropped so much. I mean, the big X factor for them is getting Verlander back. I mean, that was just massive. I mean, I honestly feel like that alone might propel them into being contenders.
Yeah.
All right. So
because when he first came back as well, he wasn't that great, and he has had time to find his rhythm and become the pitcher that we all know he is.
Yes.
I mean, he started to get good.
So here's my question to you now. So, all guys, I'm not going to ask you both, who do you think is going to win? What do you put your money on? I'm going to ask you, who do you want to win out of the 12 we see here? Who would you like to see win or be in the World Series? Don't give me like a breakdown of like, oh, it's such a tough team going to win because of their depth. Just give me a romantic answer. Who do you want to win? Jonny? Oh yeah, well, duh. Besides the Braves.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the Braves deserve to be in the World Series for the National League because they've been the best team all season. I agree with Josh. They've got very unlucky with injuries, so the pitching has suffered. But that hitting lineup is a joy to watch. They can win games regardless how bad the starting pitching is, and I anticipate that's exactly what they're going to do. I cannot see beyond the Braves in the National League. In the American League, if I'm honest with you, I want to see the Orioles. I just think it's amazing what they've done when you consider how tough the AL East is. They're the #1 seed in the American League. They deserve it. They've got 100+ wins, and you know how bad they were, and it wasn't that long ago. They were absolutely awful. So what an amazing job they've done to build up this rotation and build up this. As
mentioned in that David and Erik Rogue episode. Yes, I agree. But you know that already. Josh, who are you going for?
Yeah, well, if I'd watched and listened to that, I'd know that. Yeah, but I haven't.
So for me, I'll go for a team that normally I don't really care for, but I feel like this may be their window, which is the Texas Rangers. I think back to when they lost the World Series in such heartbreaking form to the St. Louis Cardinals. They've never won a World Series. They are just, a downtrodden organization. And for me, that's kind of one of the things you want to root for sometimes, the organizations that just haven't had their moment in the sun. So maybe this is their moment.
Fair enough. What about the National League, though, JC? You only talked about the American League. You said you want Texas. What about the National League? You want Braves, don't you? Because they're a great team and you love them.
Oh, bless your heart. Now, I would love to see, again, big underdog. They're not going to do it. The Marlins, when they get in the playoffs, they always seem to do something magical other than the COVID year. So that would be kind of interesting. But I really like the Brewers. I think they're a bit of an under the radar team. I think they have a lot of talent. I've always been a Christian Yelich fan. They've got some solid pitching, some bullpen work. So yeah, let's go Bruce.
Buddy,
Bruce
I'm just thinking if the Marlins did pull off a miracle here and could make it all the way through from the wild card spot all the way through to the World Series, Peter Pratt's gonna self implode. I mean, the excitement of the man anyway throughout the season. I mean, he's beside. So you're now his new best friend. Now that you're saying you want the Marlins to make it to the World Series. Okay,
Peter's like a British baseball star.
He's a
Miami
superstar,
Marlins.
and he's a top boy as well. He's an absolute top boy. He's one of my favorites actually on the whole baseball scene. Eric, what about you, buddy? Come on, we need your opinion.
Yeah, no, basically,
actually,
yes,
buddy, can I tip my
on.
hat to you? Sorry to interrupt, but I do remember a few seasons back when we were doing the preseason predictions, you coming out, and it may have been last season or maybe the season before, but you said the Orioles, and we all laughed at you. What an idiot! What does he know? You're only a couple of seasons out, big man.
I didn't say they're going to go all the way.
No, but
at the beginning of the season, I said the Pirates were going to go. We're going to be a surprise this season, and they started off surprisingly amazing, then they became surprisingly crap.
Yeah,
I did say that they weren't going to go all the way. But what I'm actually hoping is a Brewers and Orioles World Series. I should be with my Canadian roots. People say, "Oh, come on, you got to go with the Blue Jays." I just know too many Toronto friends would be insufferable if the Blue Jays win, including Colin Murray. So I will not go for the Blue Jays, but I'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I might, but
you'll waffle. You'll eat a waffle and waffle.
Exactly. So I will now say we moving on.
Can I say one thing before we say we're moving on? Okay, so Josh has said he's gutted the Cubs didn't make the postseason. You said you're gutted the Reds because of Joey Votto. I just want to say I'm gutted that Seattle didn't make it. And the fact that I had a fiver on them at about 100 to 1 has nothing to do with that. But I like the Mariners. I'm a big fan. If you remember when we went there, they were so lovely to us as an organization. I'd love to see them being successful. So I'm going to show them the love. You've given the Cubs some love, Reds love. JG's giving Mariners love. There you go. Hit that bell. Okay, time now for batter number 2. And we've been talking playoff baseball in the major leagues, but there's been some other fantastic playoff baseball. We're talking the European Baseball Championships. They got underway in the Czech Republic, and by Jove, as if GB haven't had enough baseball success of late. Josh, you're going to take it through us, but it looks like the boys have been in quite well. Drew Spencer for Prime Minister might be the shout that we're all putting out. I got to be honest, Gouldy, talking about this, it's going to be difficult not to get emotional. As you know, I looked up the roster. I first represented GB in 1996. The current roster, 17 of those players weren't even born yet. Now, I could take comfort in by the time I retired in 2006, they were all born. But it just looking at where the program is, and I'm a student of British baseball history. I've written stuff on it. There have been ebbs and flows. I tend to roll my eyes when people start to say, oh, this is the first time this is the first time that. And I just sort of, say, hey, look, there have been times. But I've got to say that this feels special and different. You go back to the World Baseball Classic, where Great Britain beat Colombia to assure its spot in the next WBC. Then we had the under-23s, which is a really important tournament because it's a reflection of your youth, in some cases, youth development. Obviously, Great Britain has had a number of players that they've been able to recruit from outside of the UK, but who have British passports. And they were able to put together a team to win a silver medal there. So they won a silver medal, falling to the Dutch, who are a baseball powerhouse there. And then we get to the European Championships, and I got to be honest with you, I had some doubts. Can they keep it going? This is an event where everybody brings in their big guns, and you don't have the benefit that you have at the World Baseball Classic of just having sort of a tenuous relationship. Everyone has a passport. And so, just to give you a sense, the European Championships have been going on since 1954. Every event since then that both Italy and the Netherlands have played in, they played in all of them except for 2. Those 2 teams have finished either first or second. Okay. Right. I mean, it's just that crazy that one of them have finished at least first or second. And really, since 1967, when neither of those teams played, and 1955, when Italy didn't play, those are the only 2 times where either Italy or the Netherlands didn't win the gold. Right. So fast forward to this year, and it's amazing parity. Great Britain runs the table in their pool, beating Italy for the first time ever. Yep, 11-10. I gave this stat. Now, we lost to them in 2003, 7-5, but we played them 6 other times. The combined score in those games, 77-4
Italy to Great Britain. So, I mean, with the exception of that one game, really, I mean, we weren't in the same class, and here we are beating them. So that was huge. To go into the playoffs, you have to play the Czech Republic on their home turf, their own fans, beat them, beat Germany, get to the finals. Now, they fell at the last hurdle, but I got to be honest with you, looking at the big picture, looking at the U25s, looking at the World Baseball Classic, looking at this, you feel that there's something different with Great Britain baseball for the first time. This is something perhaps sustainable. That, when we've had success in the past, we've won 2 previous silver medals, 67, 2007. You didn't have younger players like this coming up through the pipeline. So I am so chuffed for this team. The only dispiriting thing is you hear the complaints like, oh, they're not British players. And I feel like increasingly there are players of importance who are playing on British soil. You had Chris Mesmer, who was a key pitcher who pitched for the London Mets. Michael Flaherty played with the London Mets. You have a number of these players, Sausalito, who was a pitcher, Freddie Mosier, all these players who are actually not just on the team, but playing roles in terms of the success or failure of this program that is on the ascent. So, I sort of brush aside a little bit of those claims like, oh, these are all, mercenaries. I feel that's happening less and less. But I also feel that for those players that are sort of coming in, that there is hope that those people are going to also give back to the program. I mean, that's how I started, right? I was a mercenary in 1996, first player ever to just be brought over without playing domestically. I ended up living there, ended up doing the show. There are a number of other, a guy named Brian Essery. He moved over, played with the London Mets after representing Great Britain. Simon Isons went up to Liverpool. So I feel like everything's moving in the right direction. And I can't say it loudly enough, but congratulations to Drew Spencer, Brad Marcelino, a former teammate of mine who's the hitting coach there, that whole staff. Jonathan Crammon, who I coached when he was a kid, is now on that staff. It's just, again, very emotional. It's a really big win, this silver medal.
It's amazing, and we're all thrilled for them, obviously, and issue our heartiest congratulations. To make the final is something special. Just tell me, though, Josh, as somebody who has a really detailed knowledge on the whole inside workings of Great Britain baseball, how big a part has Drew Spencer played in this extraordinary story in recent seasons?
Well, I mean, I definitely think it's been a crescendo. Like, you go back to Stefan Rapaglia, Liam Carroll, each of them took the program to another level. Each of them, their bid. And I think that Drew's now taking it to the next level. Yeah, I worked with Drew on the London series. I got a chance to get to know him a little better. And there is definitely a culture that he engenders of tenacity, grit, never give up. There's something innate in his personality that brings that out, I think, in the players.
Yeah.
And so I do think that he's played a huge role, but I also think his staff has too. I mean, Brad Marcelino, again, I roomed with him in his first Euros in '99. He was a teenager. He didn't say a word. He's now a AAA hitting coach for the Seattle Mariners. So you bring in that level of expertise, and that's going to up the game for everyone as well.
Yeah.
The assistant coaches. So Drew brings a great attitude. He also knows how to construct a great coaching staff in order to help the players, because, this isn't, there's certain times where it's development. In an event like this, it's really about maintenance and making small changes. And clearly he's figured out how to help a team along in those very tight tournaments because he's had a lot of success now.
Just before we close this segment out, JC, you mentioned at the top of the show that sadly they didn't win the final. What actually happened in the final for any of our listeners that perhaps are not aware? Who did they play and what was the score?
Yeah, they played Spain. Spain put up 5 in the first inning, then had a Great Britain came back, scored a couple runs, made it 5-2. The one thing about Great Britain is they have come back in like 8 of their last 10 wins. So I wasn't giving up after the 5 runs. Unfortunately, then the Spanish put another 4 on the board, 9-2. The final score was 11-2. So yeah, it was a tough defeat in the final hold. But one thing that was very impressive were the stars of this team. Nick Ward, who's a Phillies prospect, and Harry Ford, who is a uber prospect for the Mariners.
Great stuff. Well, from all of us here on the Jonny and Josh podcast, huge congratulations to the GB baseball team, and in particular to Drew Spencer, the head coach, and all his managerial team. You're doing us proud, guys. We love you. Keep it up. Okay, let's move it on. Okay, third batter up. We've flipped the whole show. Normally do the news roundup at the top. We've decided to do it at the bottom, and there's loads to discuss. So let's get the news roundup up next. Right, well, let's start with the big story, and there is only one big story compared to any others, and that is, of course, the legend that is Ronald has joined the 40-70 club, 40 home runs, 70 stolen bases in one season. JC, before Erik has his go, because I know what he's going to say, are there any words left to describe how phenomenal this young man is?
To me, this is one of the great accomplishment seasons of all time. We spent so much time on Aaron Judge when he had his big home run last year.
Yeah.
40-70 to me is more impressive than 60+ home runs. I got to be honest, the speed power. Now,
for those who aren't unaware, explain 40-70.
So he had hit 40+ home runs, 70+ stolen bases. Now, I understand the rules have changed. Stolen bases are up, made it easier with the larger bases, with rules in terms of the pitch clock. So 70 stolen bases are devalued a little bit. I get that. But even with that fact, to me, it's astonishing. I mean, we've had 40-40s, a lot of examples of that. Not a lot, but some examples, the Jose Cansecos of the world. But 40-70, man, I'm impressed, Goldie.
Good, because I know what Erik's. We'll let Erik have his say in a moment, but I mean, I'm looking at the lineup of the top stolen bases in the league, and once you get to number 8, which is Julio Rodriguez, he's stolen half as many. To put it in perspective, you're mentioning the bigger bases have made it easier. Well, he's still twice as good as the vast majority of the rest of the league. So let's get that into perspective. Anyway, Erik, I know you're going to slag it off and say it's meaningless. Off you go.
It's not meaningless. It's a bit diluted. Let's face it. Without the pitch clock, without the pickoff to first rule, he doesn't get 40-70 in any other season. That's my stance. And yeah, the bigger bases.
Okay, here's my response straight away. One, what impact do those changes have to his ability to hit a home run? They've made it any easier?
Oh, no, okay, so maybe he would have gotten only 40-39 in any other season. How's that?
Okay,
still a remarkable season. I mean, maybe it's not as historic, but it's remarkable.
There's only one guy, and that's Esteury Ruiz, the center fielder for Oakland, that got even close to his stolen base total. The guy in third, Corbin Carroll, is 20 stolen bases behind. 20. That's a great season, a whole season. He's 20 behind in one season. So, I mean, the number, he's still, I understand what you're saying about it being easier because the bigger bases and the clock means that the pitch is a bit rushed. I understand all of that. So the pickoff's not as easy. But the reality is, look at everybody else. Put it in perspective. He's still miles ahead of literally the whole chasing pack. And on top of that, he's hitting 41 home runs. Do you know how many, Erik, how many of the top 20 stolen bases have hit 30 home runs or more?
Go on, tell me.
Two.
Okay.
So he's hit 41. So he's like 10 ahead of even them, but there's only 2 of the top 20 base stealers. So that's the point that Josh is making, is that you don't normally associate that level of power with somebody who's got that level of athleticism, that they're stealing bases for fun. And I think that's what makes him amazing. 149 runs scored, an average of 337. I mean, look at the stats across the board. No question, the number 1 baseball player outside of Ohtani. When you consider Ohtani's injury issues, I would actually say he has been the MVP of the season.
Well, my response to you is meh. Moving on.
Okay, well, the Shohei must go on like that. That was good. That was Erik. He wrote that. Do you like that, Josh? The Shohei must go on. Yeah,
he's the funniest guy of the 3 of us.
Oh, no question. Mind you, the bar's not exactly high.
No,
brilliant.
Fair point.
I know it's old news. He's out for the rest of the season, which is a tragedy. Particularly since he had last year finally literally a season of complete health. It's always the problem, and of course it couldn't have been a worse time given the fact he's about to become a free agent. So has he cleared his locker out? Is he no longer going to be an Angel? What do we know anything? Is it all just speculation and rumor at the moment?
No, I mean he did clear his locker out. He was done before the season ended. Next year, he will not pitch. He's going to have UCL surgery, Tommy John surgery, ulnar collateral ligament surgery again, but he will hit. That affects, obviously, his value to a certain extent, but if you believe he's going to come back And these are going to be long-term contracts. It's not like he's going to have to take a pillow contract. In other words, take a 1-year contract, probably. I think there'll be a team out there that will step out. Will it be the Angels? We've seen it in the past. Artie Moreno decided to hold on to the team. He did it with Albert Pujols. So I wouldn't put it past him to, overspend to keep Ohtani. But Ohtani's made it clear that what he wants is to be on a winner. And the Angels are snake bit. Doesn't matter who they go after. They always seem to go for past performance and not have an eye towards the future, like Anthony Rendon, who's been, obviously disappointment. You feel for Trout, but you feel all the other guys they brought in, it's just never quite coalesce. So my guess is that Ohtani's going to go elsewhere. I don't think it's going to be about the money per se. It wasn't about the money when he joined the Angels in the first place. He had other options that were similar amounts. So I think we'll see him somewhere else.
Okay, well, one person we're not going to be seeing, certainly not in a Giants locker, is manager Gabe Kapler, fired with 2 days left in the season, which seems incredibly harsh. I mean, at the time of firing, let's face it, is a very tough NL West when you've got to deal with the Dodgers, you've got to deal with the Padres. I mean, they were still mathematically in a wild card chase. Does that not seem harsh to you?
Yeah, it seems weird. I think that there's probably some behind the scenes things going on. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere close to friends with Gabe Kapler, but I know him, sort of ran in similar circles. He's a Southern California guy, which is where I grew up, and a very interesting character, very strong personality. Before he was with the Phillies as a manager, he'd worked in the Dodgers organization and sort of had a reputation of like having a real vision. As a manager, he's been kind of mediocre, right? He was pretty mediocre with the Phillies. He had one great year with the Giants, but otherwise, So it'll be interesting to see with that kind of perspective, but without the track record, is someone else going to give him another chance? And I would love to get a sense of why, firing someone with 2 days left. I mean, that seems to suggest there's some real friction there.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's not just San Francisco that's going to have a change of manager next season. The New York Mets, who've had an incredibly disappointing season, are also going to have a new man at the helm. Would you believe it? Today, of course, we're recording it Sunday. David Langell, our other friend and compadre, is actually at Citi Field, and he found out real time about the news about Buck Showalter, and this was his reaction.
Okay, so this is breaking news. Just watching the opening ceremonies for the final game of the season, and the crowd started to give Buck Showalter a standing ovation, and the players were giving him an ovation as he went up to deliver the lineups to the umpires, and then he walked back and he tipped his cap, and Buck Showalter is out as New York Mets manager. He has announced that he's leaving. To me, that's tremendously sad, because Buck Showalter is a guy who I wanted to watch the Mets for a very long time. And when they finally got him, I was so happy, because they really needed a voice like that, an experienced old school manager. And it didn't go right this year, I know. I hope it was a decision that he made himself rather than being sort of kicked out of the door prematurely. At any rate, Buck Showalter, one of the best managers in baseball today, maybe all time. I know he's never won the big one, but that doesn't mean he wasn't a great manager. And I hope there's more for him, because I still think he has a lot to offer. So Buck Showalter out as New York Mets manager after today.
Well, I mean, interesting. David's a Mets fan. He's probably better informed and more appropriate that his view is the relevant one for all of us. I mean, he's gutted, JC. I mean, he's a big fan. Apparently, Buck got a standing ovation amongst the Mets faithful. And when you look at their season, where they finished, I mean, holy macaroni. I mean, could you have predicted at the beginning of the season a team with the money they've got was going to finish in 29 and a half games back of the Atlanta Braves at the top of the National League East? It's a disastrous season, and yet it seems neither the players nor the fans have turned against Buck Showalter.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they talk about managers, really your one job is to keep the clubhouse, and to keep that positivity. And clearly the people who were still around felt that way. There was some outside criticism that the Mets team got kind of lazy. Peter Alonso got some criticism this year. Obviously, as an organization, they punted, getting rid of Scherzer, getting rid of Verlander. So there's a bit of a reset. So, I'm sad. I've always been a big Buck Showalter fan. I think he's a good manager. He's a steady presence. That's the impression he gives. But when you get a new head of baseball operations and you're trying to reset, it probably makes sense for that person to bring in their own guy to lead the ship.
Do we know whether he's jumped or whether he was pushed?
He was
I don't
emotional.
know.
He was emotional at the press conference. That's all we know. At the time of recording, it is that fresh that it was announced just prior to first pitch that he will not be the Mets manager next year. That's all.
I think regardless of whether, he's saying he's willing to go or not, I suspect that there was definitely signs that they wanted a change of pace.
Okay. Well, season can't be any worse. I mean, when you're only you only got the Washington Nationals below you in the NL East, I mean, you are struggling. Okay, well, more news, and this one's really sad, certainly for me. Miguel Cabrera is finally quitting the game. He's about 103, so we it's not that surprising we're saying goodbye to Miggy. But this is particularly heart-wrenching for me, JC, Erik, because this is a player that was gracing the sport when we were doing the show back in the late 90s, early 2000s, up until 2008 on Channel 5. I look at his numbers, over 10,000 career at-bats, over 1,500 career runs, over 500 home runs, over 1,800 RBIs. And a career average of 307. I mean, a great player. And I'm assuming, JC, a cert for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I feel pretty certain about that. The thing about guys like him, they mark time for us, right? Because these are the type of players who year in, year out are great. So they're your heroes for a long period of time, or a group of fans' heroes. And there's a comfort in knowing that they're going to be there. Cal Ripken was that kind of player, right? He marked time for us during a certain period of our lives. Brooks Robinson, who just passed away, same thing. Carl Yastrzemski. I think of these players who played for teams, and I know obviously Miggy also played for the Marlins, but played for teams for a long time. We're sort of there. And so it's almost impossible not to get nostalgic when these players retire, because you realize, where did the time go? And I mean, Miggy, not quite the distance of the Channel 5 show, but he almost goes back. And so, he's a player who really marked time for our involvement with baseball in terms of 100%. Channel 5 and so forth.
And JC, sorry, Erik, you must be absolutely gutted. Obviously as a Tigers fan, this is a legend of the club, legend of the sport.
Yeah, the thing is, Josh said it right, that he has a time stamp in our lives, isn't he? And in baseball history, he's also the man to have hit the last ever home run at an Expos game. So last home game at the Montreal Expos, in the Olympic Stadium, Miggy hit a home run. So that was the last home run. That's how long ago he goes back, to 2004. Right. Well, he started in 2003 as well, and won the World Series with the Marlins then. But here's my controversial stance. He overstayed his welcome. The past 7 years, let's face it, I hate to admit it, because I love Miggy as well. He is a character. He was fun. But the past 7 years were absolutely dreadful. He's only hit 64 home runs in the past 7 years. He has like a WAR of like 3.3 in the past 7 years, which is the third lowest for anybody in the past 7 years.
Erik, okay, I'm going to throw a question your way. You're the king of questions. Name a player who met some of the counting stacked levels of, gold plating, right? So 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, who didn't fall off at the end of their careers. There are none, really. I mean, there are very few examples. I think of Carl Yastrzemski, Pete Rose, Albert Pujols, they all overstay their welcome in order to get to those numbers.
But 7 years.
Pujols, I mean, come on. Other than that second half of his final year, I mean, he was I don't even know if he was a plus WAR player. He was barely over plus WAR. It's not uncommon. I think that's quite common. So disappointing, but realistic.
That's it. Well, that's the thing. Sadly, we also say goodbye to Joey Votto, Zach Greinke, and Adam Wainwright this year. They'll no longer be with us in the next season. They are now also that's Zach Greinke and Miggy Cabrera are the last two players who ever played against the Expos. So that's it. Now the Expos are
And
uplifted.
has Greinke announced his retirement? I
Yes,
didn't know.
yes.
Okay. Well, you did go 1-15 this year, which is a bit
Yeah,
disappointing. But
exactly.
he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he has 77 WAR, something like that.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's the one active player right now with the most WAR, Mike Trout. But another person we have to say goodbye to is Tito. Terry Francona announces his retirement from managing baseball and in the Cleveland organization. He's another one who's been a timestamp in our lives, of course. Even for me, when I remember him as a first baseman in the Montreal Expos in his playing career. So
Do you
goodbye,
know how
Terry
old he
Francona.
is? Erik, do you know how old he is?
Older than us.
2 years older than me.
That's pretty fucking old.
I
Yes.
hope you're going to hit the bleep button there.
Yes.
But no, he's retiring. He's only 2 years older than me. I'm not even thinking about retiring.
Well, he has had health issues. So
Yes, he has. Yes,
Yeah,
he has.
major health issues. I mean, he was having trouble walking, sitting on
Yeah.
planes. That's going to be a real loss. I mean, he is really a guy who had been respected by players everywhere that he went. So always a shame to see a manager who has that kind of gravitas leave the game.
Yeah. Moving on.
Guys, it's, I mean, a lot of goodbyes, a lot of retirements, a lot of firings, but this one is the ultimate goodbye. And for me, a real heartbreaker. We only found this out literally a matter of minutes before we started recording this tonight. And that is that Tim Wakefield has died. And we all knew that he had brain cancer, but they've just announced that he has passed away. How sad is that, JC? Talk about a timestamp. The memories of watching him and, you know, on the show that we did on Channel 5, the knuckleballer. I absolutely loved Tim Wakefield.
Yeah, I'm beyond gutted. Obviously, a huge part of Red Sox Nation. I was a huge fan of his. Knuckleballers to me are so mystifying. It requires such discipline. What is an art as much as a mechanical type of throwing. Really, it's understanding the feel, and that he was so good at it and was able to resurrect his career. He was an infielder as a minor leaguer, and then was able to do that when he came up with the Pirates. He was so dominant. And then all those years with the Red Sox, just a class act. I think beloved by his teammates, beloved by any Red Sox fan. He will be sorely, sorely missed, Goldie.
Buddy, I had no idea just how long his tenure was with the Red Sox. 17 years from 1995 to 2012. And when he actually retired, Wakefield was the oldest active player in the major leagues, won his 200th game back in 2011, and he ranks third in career wins in Red Sox franchise history. Behind, who are the two in front of him?
Cy Young?
Correct. And controversial.
Roger
Erik,
Clemens.
you
Roger
pissed
Clemens.
him.
Roger Clemens.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I was about to say, Erik, you pissed him off. That was your clue.
Yes. It's unfortunately his death is also tarnished with certain Kurt Schilling, who broke the news about his, and not only the tragedy of this all as well is Tim Wakefield's wife has pancreatic cancer apparently. And they wanted to keep it. They wanted to keep this news quiet from certain people, and they didn't want to make it go public with it. And Kurt Schilling broke the news for them. And I can't repeat what she tweeted, but basically she was not happy about Kurt Schilling having the audacity to actually break their cancer news to the world before they could.
Doesn't do himself any favors, JC,
No,
does he, Kurt Schilling? I mean,
no.
it's hard to remember what a great player he was because
he's toxic. I mean, he's
he
just
really
everything
is,
he touches turns to lead. It's heartbreaking because he was such a warrior on the field. It's really hard to be able to separate the personality of a player with the performance. Sometimes we have a hard time with that in sports.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. Not just sports, art as well. Every major celebrity, it's, what's more important, what they gave us in terms of the work that they did or who they are off the field.
Tragically, boys, we have another RIP that we've got to mention, and that is, of course, Brooks Calvert Robinson Jr. And I know that, Erik, your view is that he's, if not the greatest, he's certainly one of the all-time great third basemen.
If there was a Mount Rushmore of third baseman, he's definitely, in my opinion, Brooks Robinson belongs on that.
Yeah, I mean, he's an example of longevity. Played his whole career with the Orioles. I mean, when I was a kid, one of the great honors when I was in junior high, so 8th grade baseball team. I was a third baseman. I was a good fielder, and the coach called me Brooksy, and I was like, "That's the dream. Like that's the most complimentary comment at that age that anyone could ever say to a third baseman." He was just athletic, acrobatic, but more important than all that stuff, we talk about off the field stuff and our questions about Kurt Schilling. Brooks Robinson was universally beloved as just a kind and gentle man. And really, when you think about it, if that's your legacy, the baseball stuff's great. He's a Hall of Famer, but being known as that kind of person, I think that's what we all strive for.
JC, do you know where he was born?
Arkansas, I think.
Arkansas.
Like
Yeah, where
Yeah.
exactly? Little Rock.
Little Rock, okay.
Little Rock, Arkansas. Yeah, absolutely. Nicknamed the human vacuum cleaner, Mr. Hoover, Mr. Oriole, 18-time All-Star, won 16 consecutive Gold Gloves. Oh my Lord!
I actually have a that I bought by accident at an auction. A signed Norman Rockwell print of Brooks Robinson with that Brooks Robinson signed. I remember being at an auction, a baseball auction, and it was only going for, this was in Holland. It was only going for 20 euros. And I remember saying, I can't believe it's only going for 20 euros. And I bid 25, and then the guy goes, the MC goes, sold. And went, oh my God, I got, okay. So I got for 25.
Why isn't it framed up on your wall? I mean, that is fantastic. I mean, Norman Rockwell is, the centerpiece of Americana art.
Exactly.
And that Brooks Robinson. What was so great about that particular print, and hopefully you'll put it up when we do the YouTube, are the faces in the crowd as he's signing the autograph.
The kids.
Norman Rockwell was great at the secondary faces. And the kid, there's this little freckly kid. It's great picture.
Yes,
I have a similar story, buddy, but I think yours is much better. I did an event. United.
Is this the Jeter story?
Yes. Have I told it before?
Yes.
All right.
32 times.
Yes. You can go back on YouTube and hear it in 3 different episodes. Moving on.
I'll just shut up. Then. The fact that I bought a Jeter ball for $50 because no one knew, it's $500 if you go online. There you go. Bit of a bargain. Okay, moving on. Right. Well, from true greats of the game, we're off now for the Badoo Watch, or a view to Akil, as in Akil de Badoo. Are we going to be doing this next season? Because looking at, as much as I love Akil, he's not exactly setting the world on fire.
No, I think we've run Akil Badoo is a fun guy to keep an eye on. We've run it to death now, but let's face it. This year was 32 RBIs, 11 home runs, 0.3 WAR. Yeah, it's been fun at Akil Badoo. We're going to find somebody else next year, I promise.
Any thoughts? Do you want suggestions? Do we ask the listeners?
We'll
maybe come up
figure
with
it out if we do come back.
Haven't we been doing that for a year? We've been asking for a year.
Yes.
Yeah,
well, but then you guys, we've all been busy, and then then we realized, oh yeah, we got to do another show, and then we're still doing a Badoo Watch. Oh well. But hey, moving on.
Okay, it's that time of the show where we all stand up because it's the 7th inning stretch. Right, baseball book of the week. What have you got for us, Erik?
Well, it's going to be something that's pretty close to Josh's heart, who collects not just baseball cards, but vintage baseball cards. It basically is called Baseball Card Flipping, Trading, and Bubblegum. The Flipping and Trading Bubblegum book by Brendan Boyd and Fred Harris. It came out in 1972. And it was a cult classic book as well. And then it went out of print, and then decided to reprint it as well. All it does is it chronicles and it gives a funny blurb on certain baseball cards in the 50s and 60s. And they call it as well that his sports writing is akin to free jazz.
Oh, I called your comedy jazz, so that's a theme.
Yes, and that's the thing. Apropos. So, but little things like he'll show Waddy Herzog's playing a card when he was a player in the 50s, and his blurb was that he caught the first ball thrown out by President Eisenhower, the ceremonial first pitch, marking that was his highlight of his entire playing career. Things like that. So that's my recommendation. Baseball books of the week. My argument about this book is, yes, it's very interesting, fascinating how the inside of certain 50s and 60s baseball cards, and some, they're not all great players. Some of them are terrible players, and the story behind the card, the photo of it, et cetera, et cetera. I think they should do another one of these, but include 70s, 80s, 90s baseball cards. Not so much.
Yeah, by the 90s, cards lost all their flair and joie de vivre. I'm not talking just cost. I'm talking about just in terms of design. And I used to, when I was a kid, collected 50s and forward. I sold that whole collection during COVID, and now I only collect pre-war cards. And pre-war cards are works of art. And I've said this before, but if anyone really wants to see baseball artwork in baseball cards, look at the 33 Gaudi set, look at the 34 to 36 Diamond Stars set, and the T206 set, and Obac, and some of the early tobacco cards. These are like drawn, painted cards, and they're beautiful. Different than what you're talking about, Erik, but like that's where the artwork was just absolutely really cool.
For me, in the 70s, when obviously it's 70s when I started collecting baseball cards. Yes, I'm old. Shut up. That my favorite card was a Billy Martin card when he was a manager of the Detroit Tigers. Not because it was a fascinating card with insight or anything, because he's actually holding a baseball bat in the photo in that baseball card, and he purposely had his middle finger out, pointing down. While holding the baseball bat
you should Google Billy Ripken. He did something very similar too. He wrote the F word on the bottom. That set, one of my favorite sets from the 70s was that 1972 set. It's got like a Roaring 20s theme, which is kind of random. Highly recommend that if you want a more
Deco-esque.
Okay, great stuff. What about the baseball cultural reference of the week, Erik?
Your favorite bit? It's going to be the baseball music. I had to find a track. I was thinking, which baseball music track should I do from which team? Then it dawned on me that it is the anniversary. It will be 20 years come next season with no Montreal Expos. Of course, Miggy and Zach Greinke retiring, being the last ones to play against the Expos. I realized, I can't believe 20 seasons have gone by, no Montreal Expos. And then 6 years after they left town in 2004 to become the Washington Nationals, a local Montreal rapper. Now, I'm not into rap music or anything, or R&B, or I'm not really a house music kind of guy, whatever. More of a rock and indie guy, you know me. But there's a guy called Anakin Slade from Montreal who paid an homage to Nos Amours, the Montreal Expos. And his song sounds something like this.
Larry walking the rock, and this one's for El Presidente, mowing no cab, and this one's for Spaceman, Crow, and Vlad, and most of all, this one's for us, the fans who stuck with the team when the times are tough, singing. Those were the days, and the memories will never fade. This one's for the kid and the cat and the hawk, and this one's for Grit, Larry walking the rock, and this one's for El Presidente, mowing no cab, and this one's for Spaceman, Crow, and Vlad. Sometimes it's the little things that bring us together. That's why I'm an Expo forever. Remember, nothing away, and the memories will never fade. Knows I'm in my heart.
Let me leave you with this, Elliot. To Rusty and Beatsy and Singy and Georgie, Stoney and Frenchie, Bach and Cy and LP, Hawk, Crow and Rock, Woody, Ross the Boss and the Kid, Eli, Gully, Scotty, Charlie and Scoop, the Cat and Marquise, Walk and Mo, El Presidente and Pedro, Cliffy and Rondell, and Orlando and Michael and Brian and Jose and Vladdy. You got the picture. A wealth of wonderful memories. And I know that as Expos fans, you won't let go of that.
Okay. You know my view on rap music, guys, as what's his name said, it's just missing the C at the front. I actually like that. I'll be honest, I like that. I like I love all the baseball references. I think that's pretty cool.
I think what really makes it for me, Erik, is, it's all about what you sample, right? And they're sampling that song at the start as a sample to This Week in Baseball's theme. And that's fantastic. And they make it work. They make it work. It's pretty cool.
It's nostalgia for me as well. They're using Dave Van Horn, who was a commentator for Montreal Expos for many, many years. One of my, a voice that I grew up with. So yes, I do like. I was able to overlook that I'm not a really rap kind of guy, a rap fan. But yes, you nailed it, Jonny. All the greats were there in the history of the Montreal Expos, and Dave Van Horn.
It's good stuff. I enjoyed that. That's more
okay,
like it.
There you go.
Okay. Let's move it on. Well, guys, we're bringing the show to a close. It's been great to have your company. As always, we would ask you to help us. You can see all the stuff at the bottom. We need you to help us get the word out there about the Jonny and Josh podcast. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. And, of course, we've got our own designated YouTube channel. If you do want to see that rogue episode, you haven't seen it already, of Erik and Dave going rogue, it is well worth a visit. Well, certainly the first 6 minutes anyway. Don't bother with the rest. The Nat Coombs Show is, of course, also well worth looking at the NC show. And what's this about a watch party, Erik? You want to mention a watch party? What are you buying another Timex? What's the story?
I can mention the watch party, or I can mention the answer to the trivia question.
Yeah, you just sort of.
Well, we could come to that at the end. Why do we always have to be so regimented? Why can't I just do something different?
Okay, well, the watch party, once again, at that past Union Avenue in Westfield, in Stratford, keep an eye out on the social media at MLB UK community. I'm sure once the playoffs begin, there'll be a watch party with a Philly cheesesteak, many a beer, many a hot dog. So keep your eyes out for that. You might even see me there.
Mate, you never say no to a free beer and a cheesesteak. So, yeah. And obviously, do check out all the MLB UK community activities. There's loads going on. You want to be a part of the family, then just check it out on social media. Now, I was meant to do the trivia answers early, but I didn't. So, so tough. Let's do it now. Let's do it now.
Okay, so I asked you earlier which pitcher has pitched the most complete games in his career. And I gave you a choice of, was it Adam Wainwright, Justin Verlander, or was it Zach Greinke? Now, Josh, you go first.
Oh, 3 great choices, but I'm pretty sure that the answer is Adam Wainwright. I think that earlier in his career, the guy was a bit of a workhorse. So,
and I didn't mean current active players. In this, as we speak, the time recording is they're still active, and so he qualifies as an active player. Jonny, who are you going to go for out of those 3?
I mean, I obviously don't know the answer. I mean, there's no point in trying to pretend. I'm going to go with Verlander just simply because the other 2 are quitting at the end of the season, and I like the symbolism of the answer is the one who's the odd one out. He's not quitting. He'll still be around. I'm going with Verlander. I'm going with Justin.
The game within the game. I like that.
Exactly. The game within the
interesting.
Game. I mean, we all know, Erik. We all know Josh is right. Just put me out of my misery.
Well, if you would have picked Zach Greinke, Jonny, you would have been wrong because he only has 17. Had 17.
Oh, Justin Verlander's got well into the 20s, mid-20s, I'd say.
Adam Wainwright has 28, and actually, I can't use present form anymore. Had 28 because he retires in a few hours. And Justin Verlander, 26. 26.
No! Damn. Did Adam Wainwright have one this season?
Today you're wrong. Today you are wrong. You lose today's trivia question as per usual. But if you get another 2 or 3, you tie or.
You're right.
But next year, if the question's asked again, it won't be relevant because Adam Wainwright won't be playing or Zach Greinke.
Exactly. But yeah, does he have enough in him to have 3 complete games in the rest of his career? Probably not with these new rules.
But here's the thing: is that if you ask the question once the postseason starts, a postseason that will not include either Greinke nor Wainwright, who will both be retired at that point, the active leader will be Justin Verlander.
And what if he throws 2 complete games in the postseason?
Doesn't matter. They don't count for those statistics.
No, it doesn't.
Nope. No, separate statistics.
Really?
Yes.
Correct. Where have
Did
you been?
Know that, Goldie?
I didn't know that. No, okay, fine.
Bless.
Okay.
Good thing you don't work for a TV sports show.
Yeah. Have you seen a picture of Verlander's wife?
Yes. Let's keep it at that because there's also some videos that kids shouldn't be watching past a watershed. Moving on.
The lovely Kate Upton.
Yes.
I mean, Josh, that explains everything with the lovely Mrs. Chetwin. because
I
you're a
always think
Boston
of that great
supporter.
line in the movie Moneyball. It was like, I don't want that guy on our team. Why? Because his girlfriend's ugly, has no self-esteem. Justin Verlander's the exact opposite.
That is fantastic. No, it's not. It's appalling. It's misogynist, and I'm a modern man, so I'm not going to laugh. So what else are you up to, guys? We're going off. We've run out of time. What have you got to look forward to? Some more curling, JC?
No, I'm going with the family to Chicago, where my wife and I met at university, at Northwestern University. My son's going to look at that school, although he's putting in his UCAS application next week.
And
So it's crazy.
And which UCAS universities is he considering?
I don't want to sell him out, you
No,
know.
that's-
Tell his
okay.
personal
we
stuff.
don't want the paparazzi showing up at the school
Exactly.
gates. Come on.
I don't want to be the Kurt Schilling of this podcast either. So you know.
Yeah, exactly. We could talk off air. I just don't want
Okay.
anyone. I don't want anyone to be offended if my son's not interested in their particular university.
What about you, Erik? What are you
Going
up to,
back to
big guy?
Geneva for more ice hockey, and then I'm supposed to go and see my parents because I've been a very bad son, and I should go to Montreal soon and say hello because I've only seen them once
Okay.
since COVID, and who knows? Maybe I'll pop on the train and from Montreal and maybe catch a Blue Jays game if they make it to the playoffs, deep into the playoffs, I should say, and boo them.
And boo them.
Yes.
Well, guys, as you know, this is my busiest time of year, and I've had a ridiculously busy September. But bizarrely, October, I think it's because of the Rugby World Cup. There's not that much going on. I mean, I've got some gigs, but not a huge amount. And I've got a week where I've got literally nothing coming up. And I've had 2 amazing invites. And I thought, you know, hell, my brother's phoned me up and said he's got tickets for the quarterfinal of the Rugby World Cup. And the game is going to be England-Fiji. So I am flying out to Marseille for that, which is going to be very exciting. A couple of days with my bro, drinking beer and watching rugby. Doesn't get any better than that. Erik, we need to communicate with Dave, because the one thing about your rogue episode that's really upset me is Dave saying, not even a phone call, Goldie's an hour down. I wasn't an hour. It was well over an hour. And the man can't do a flipping podcast. What likelihood am I going to get him out for 4 hours to drive all the way to see me? Because I don't have a car. That's why I didn't call. But I feel terrible. I sort of feel like I've let my friend down.
Okay, so we're gonna try to figure out when we're gonna do our next show. We'll
Yeah.
we'll keep you posted on keep an eye on our social media, and hopefully it'll be a World Series review. Maybe if we somehow have the time, we'll do a mid-playoffs review. Keep your eye. We don't know, but otherwise you'll see a World Series review preview show potentially.
All
in the
4 of
future.
us.
All
Josh,
4 of us.
Yeah.
JC, what about a rogue show? You and me, big guy.
Didn't
Let's
we do
ditch
that
the other
for
2.
years? I thought we
Done
did that for
done a
years.
few of those already. It's just like it's just that Johnny and Josh will go rogue and call themselves Johnny and Josh. Yeah.
Guys, as always, been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me. And thank you to all our fellow baseball nuts. Thank you for listening to the Johnny and Josh podcast. This was the postseason review, pre-playoff preview. Anyway, we'll be back shortly, hopefully. Thanks for listening. Till next time. Bye-bye.
And we leave you with
Oh, yes, we leave you with some music. And it's a bit of a rap, and it's worth listening to.
I would like to share this with the people in Montreal that are not going to have a team anymore. But my heart and my ring is with them too.
This one's from the Expos, Montreal. Yeah. Annie Slade's got the springtime blues real bad. Can't help but reminisce about the great years we had. I remember photo day 83 summer. Yeah, I still have the pick of me, my pops and my brother. I remember All-Star Game 5 man strong. 59,000 fans looking on. I remember tears at the kids' last game. Stood right behind him as the anthem played. Now my homemade sign's got his autograph name on the newspaper cover, first rush with fame. I remember singing Valtteri, Valderall, 03 wild card race last hurrah. I remember Vlad 40-40 in the call they got wrong. The game against the Braves, Cliff Floyd going long. Still missing Montreal ball 6 years on. Yeah, sometimes you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Marquise Grissom is flying. He's already at second. Here he comes to third. He's been waved. The play at the plate. Grissom has the slide. Safe at home. Expos
This one's for the kid and the cat and the hawk. And this one's for Grit, Larry, Walk, and The Rock. And this one's for El Presidente, Mo, and No Cab. And this one's for Spaceman, Crow, and Vlad. And most of all, this one's for us, the fans who stuck with the team when the times were tough. Singing.
Those were the days, and the memories will never fade. Knows I'm holding my
I remember Rondell White and Lou Frazier, Odie Nixon, FP, Eli, and Laser. I remember the magic El Perfecto, 27 men up then down like presto. I remember sun coming down on the field, no roof. I remember doing a jig on the dugout with youths. I remember just how close we came. 81 in the strike year, still feel the pain. I'll never forget that last night at the O. Had both arms wrapped around my dad and my bro. It looked just like that pic we took years ago. The only thing different were the tears that flowed. Yeah, most of y'all must think I love the halves war, but if it were up to me, I'd feel like 94. I remember the last time I checked the box score and the last sad send-off from Dave Van Horn. This one's for the kid and the cat and the hawk, and this one's for Grit, Larry, Walk, and the Rock, and this one's for El Presidente, Mo, and No Cab, and this one's for Spaceman, Crow, and Vlad, and most of all, this one's for us, the fans who stuck with the team when the times were tough, singing.
Those were the days, and the memories will never fade. Those are moving
This one's for the kid and the cat and the hawk, and this one's for Grit, Larry, Walk, and the Rock, and this one's for El Presidente, Mo, and No Cab, and this one's for Spaceman, Crow, and Vlad. Sometimes it's the little things that bring us together. That's why I'm an Expo forever. Remember.
up and away, and the memories will never fade. Those are moving my heart.
Let me leave you with this, Elliot. To Rusty and Beatsy and Singy and Georgie, Stoney and Frenchie, Bach and Cy and LP, Hawk, Crow and Rock, Woody, Ross the Boss and the Kid, Eli, Gully, Scotty, Charlie and Scoop, the Cat and Marquise, Walk and Mo, El Presidente and Pedro, Cliffy and Rondell, and Orlando and Michael and Brian and Jose and Vladdy. You got the picture. A wealth of wonderful memories. And I know that as Expos fans, you won't let go of that.